Sean Avanis. I'm a system architect with MultiTech, and today we're going to be talking about DeviceHQ. You're currently looking at the web interface for DeviceHQ. The website's devicehq.com. And the very first thing I would suggest that you do is, I'm going to log out of here myself. So the very first thing I would do is go to devicehq.com and register a new account. So you put all your information into this dialog box, click on I'm not a robot, create your account. And what will happen is you'll get an email from MultiTech with verifying your credentials, and you need to click on their link to verify it's you. And then after that, you can use your username and password to sign in. So we're going to sign in to this gateway. This is the main interface. This is the home page to the device, to DeviceHQ. You'll see that on this particular instance, I have 1,253 gateways, which is quite a few, but we could support a lot more than that. Typically, the first time you log in, you're not going to have any. So we need to have your individual gateway connect with DeviceHQ. And the way we do that is you go into the corner here, click on account information, and you'll see that there's a key located right here. You take that key, you copy it to your clipboard, and then go inside of your gateway. And this is typically what it would look like when you first log into a gateway. I'm going to go into administration, remote management. I'm going to enable remote server. I'm going to copy and paste that key directly in here. So then you would scroll down, click submit, and after you click on submit, you'll get a red box up here saying save changes. Save your changes. After you do that, when you go in DeviceHQ, you're going to have one box. You're going to be one device available for you to look at. So we're going to go in here and look at devices. I'm just going to look at one particular gateway, this one right here, and kind of go into more detail on that. So I'm going to paste this to search this for that gateway, and here's that gateway we're going to look at. So you click on that gateway, and it brings up information on the gateway. It tells you that it's an MTCAP3, LNA7. You can create many different groups. It's really limited. Serial number of the device, the carrier is AT&T. For the hardware gateway, the cellular IMEI is listed here. The IMSI, that's the SIM card number. Firmware is 6.32. It's the latest radio firmware. This is the last configuration that was sent to it. This device does not have a GPS, but if it did, it would show GPS location over here. This device is set to check in every 4 hours. It last checked in 20 minutes ago, and it's been up for 2 days. It was probably programmed to reboot. That's probably why it's only been up for 2 days. So on Ethernet, it has a Ethernet IP of this with a mask of this, and then it uses Google's DNS, this particular gateway. And you can have the device set up as a DHCP server, and you can have it give a range of IP addresses. And this one's set to use 30.20 through 3254 with submask, and then the gateway is its own DNS. So that's basic information on the device. As we look over here, I mentioned if you have dual location information, GPS, it would show it here. Check-ins, it shows every 4 hours that it's checking in. You can look at this. You can make it so it creates a larger list. You can click 25 and look at 25 check-ins. This device is doing very well. Cellular connection, I don't know why it's dropping, but it shows RSSI here, and RSSI is radio signal strength. We also can look at the quality of service, and that's these two other settings, RSRP and RSRQ. Network, we can actually look at how much bandwidth that device is using. So over the Ethernet port on this network, but if we go to the cellular interface, you can see it's a lot higher, and there was a spike on this day, and maybe you want to debug on why that spike happened on July 1st, but it gives you some insight on what's happening inside your device. So then under LoRa, you have the ability to look at the end nodes that are inside the LoRa gateway. The caveat to this is the device has to be running a LoRa network server to do it. This device is not. So this device is currently configured as a packet forwarder to AWS. So when I go to no list, you're not going to see any devices because all the devices are managed from AWS. But if you did have a LoRa network server, you can see things like RSSI, signal to noise ratio, how long it's been joined, individual sensors. All that data is available in the cloud. So as we move, we can look at device files. So device files, you can have it set to download logs. You can specify that you want the logs to never download. You can do it on every check-in, or you can do a custom interval, maybe once a week or something like that. So what you get when you download the logs, you click on download logs. So what happens the next time this device logs in, after I request logs, it'll send logs to to the cloud, and those logs will be available for you to look at. I don't know why I didn't bring them up. So after you download the logs, I don't know why it's not coming up. Here's an example of a log. So what it does is it sends a zip file, and inside the zip file there's a couple of directories. The messaging is really the main method of debug on the devices, where you can see exactly what that device is doing. You can see that it booted. This is a fresh boot, and then everything that happens since doing dial-up, you'll see some AT commands in here that it's connecting right here. Bug your device. The other thing we do is we have configuration of the device. You can send new configurations to the device, or you can edit and modify different configurations. What I recommend is doing a configure the device remotely using the web interface, and then save the config and send it. But there's another method, and this is more for an advanced user. You have the ability to download the config. It just downloaded the config for this device. It puts it into a tar file. I'm using 7-zip to look at that tar file, and I can look at the JSON, which contains all the configuration information for that gateway. Again, this is more of an advanced function. You can go through here, carrier information. You can modify anything that's in here in this JSON, save it, and send it back to the gateway. So that's a nice feature. Some other features, you have the ability to schedule different events. So I have the ability to schedule a firmware upgrade to this device. So if I wanted to upgrade from 6.32 to 6.33, I could upload 6.33 to my cloud instance in DeviceHQ and then send that information. So I got a 5.35 here, a 6.3, and a 6.1. If there's a newer version, I would just include that. It knows that this is currently what's on there, so it's in gray. If there's a firmware upgrade that I have loaded on DeviceHQ, I can send that firmware upgrade. I can upload a new config, and that's what I recommend. Instead of using that JSON file, configure it using the GUI interface, save your config, and then send it up. You can do a partial upgrade, which we'll go into. You can reboot the device. You can request a one-time request to get download logs sent to the device. You can install apps. You can uninstall apps. You can update apps. So that partial config that I mentioned, this is a really unique feature. So instead of configuring the device remotely, you have all the same interface you have with the web interface. For example, lower WAN settings. I can specify I don't want this device to be a network server anymore. I want it to be a packet forwarder. And over here it's saying change to packet forwarder. If I wanted to turn off, let's say, the time protocol, it updates this information. Cellular, if I wanted to change my APN to something different. So these are all the things that are going to happen. So then I schedule that change. Click schedule. And it comes up, and if I click OK on the next check-in, it's going to update all these individual settings. I'm not going to do that. I kind of was just doing things random to show exactly how it works. So we're going to go back home. We're going to look at the gateways again. If all your gateways are on have GPS information, you'll see a map of all 1,200 gateways across the world on this map. It's a pretty neat feature. So on this device, I'm going to go back in and look at that individual sensor and show you some of the more advanced features you can do for firmware upgrades and things like that. It's going a little slow. It's almost there. All right, so we're up. So I'm going to go into the devices, and I'm only looking at one device, but I can tell it show me all the devices. And I can specify that I want something done to this one, and this one. And then under tasks, I have the ability to upgrade the firmware of just those 3 devices. I can upgrade the firmware for an entire group. I can upgrade the radio firmware, upgrade the config. I can do partial configs to any of these devices. I can reboot all 3 of these devices, or if I have 20 selected. I can request device logs. I can install apps. I can group devices. So if I wanted to have a group just for Ohio, or just for Florida, or just for the United States, you can put these groups together. A lot of devices, like 1,200 gateways, is a lot of upgrades to do all at once. It queues them. So it'll upgrade, it'll wait a couple minutes, it'll do the next one, it'll do the next one. And it might take 6 hours to upgrade 1,200 gateways because they're big multi-meg files, but it has that ability. So if you have devices deployed out in the desert or wherever, you don't need to spend thousands of dollars sending a service tech out there to plug his laptop into it to do a firmware upgrade or to fix something. That could all be done remote using tools like this. The other thing we have is ability to, this is loading up, the ability to install app or send apps to the device. And as customers write apps, they have the ability to make them public domain so other people can have access to those apps. And there's a lot of customers that have done that. There's a lot of customers that did custom Node-RED apps, and they submitted them to our store, and you're free to use them. And then you also have private apps, which you're seeing right here. The private apps are apps that you wrote and only you can see them. So you might have 5 versions of it or something like that, and only you can see those apps. So here's a bunch of demos and Node-RED. A lot of these are Node-RED, but there's so many different ones out there. There's 54 of them on there that you can do different things. EVV floor, multi-serial web page. You know, they're available to you to do whatever you like. Another feature is, as an admin, you have the ability to give different users different views. So if you don't want them to see partial config, you can disable that. You also have the ability to make everybody in your group an admin where they can do whatever they want, or you can make it so they only have read access to everything, so they can look at stuff but they can't modify it. And then developer, we have a full API that you can communicate with using remote login, and you can perform any of the functions I'm showing here using that API. So that's kind of a quick summary of DeviceHQ. If you have questions, please contact us. If there's new features, we're always open to new ideas. Appreciate your time today. Thank you.